A reading from Exodus chapter 18, verses 17 through 23. Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people with you. For the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You should represent the people before God, and you should bring their cases before God. Teach them the statutes and instructions, and make known to them the way they are to go and the things they are to do. You should also look for able men among all the people, men who fear God, are trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain. Set such men over them as officers, over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them sit as judges for the people at all times. Let them bring every important case to you, but decide every minor case themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. And if you do this, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their home in peace." Next reading. So Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you treated your servant so badly? Why have I not found favor in your sight, that you lay the burden of all this people on me? I am not able to carry all this people alone, for they are too heavy for me. If this is the way you are going to treat me, put me to death at once, if I have found favor in your sight, and do not let me see my misery." So the Lord said to Moses, "Gather for me 70 of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tent of meeting, and have them take their place there with you. I will come down and talk with you there, and I will take some of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them, and they shall bear the burden of the people along with you, so that you will not bear it all by yourself." In Numbers chapter 13. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." Then the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are." So they brought the Israelites an unfavorable report of the land that they had spied out, saying, "The land that we had gone through as spies is the land that we saw the Nephilim," the Anakites come from the Nephilim, "and to ourselves we seem like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." Then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, "Would that we have died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in this wilderness? Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become booty. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us choose a captain and go back to Egypt." This is the word of the Lord.
There is a place in your worship guide where I would encourage you to take notes of the way that God speaks to you in our time together today. So the Israelites have lived in the wilderness for 14 months. They have constructed the Ark of the Covenant, the tabernacle of God. And so the fire and cloud now rise up from the tabernacle, which means it's time for them to pack up and head out. And they take 10 months to go to the edge of the promised land. And in those 10 months of traveling in the wilderness, and really the whole 2 years that they had been in the wilderness since Egypt, Moses learned some leadership lessons along the way. Lessons that would serve us well also. Because you don't have to have a title to be a leader. Everyone is a leader in some way. If you are a parent, if you have a group of friends, if you, your interactions with people in your neighborhood or at work or even in the church. Because the definition of leadership is just the ability to lead people or to influence people in a particular direction. And so with that definition, if you're living, then you're leading. So our first leadership lesson comes from actually a family member of Moses. It is his father-in-law, Jethro. Jethro comes to visit the camp at Mount Sinai, and he just kind of observes what's happening. And he sees how Moses rise very early in the morning. He gets up and he kind of sits in the judge's seat, and then all the people of Israel gather around and bring their kind of grievances, right? She stole this and he took that, and Well, whatever the problems are, he was the judge and the jury with the laws and instructions given to him by God. And what Jethro notices is that all these people are standing around all day waiting for their case to be heard. And he realizes that one person, even if it is Moses, cannot resolve all the problems in this community. And so Jethro becomes the first management consultant in all of history. Jethro acknowledges first what the problem is. And these are words I think we all need to hear at different times in our lives. He's like, listen, what you're doing is not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for the people. Like, you are going to wear yourself out. We call it burnout, right? You are going to be burned out. And these people are going to get frustrated and impatient because they're waiting around all day. The task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. You may think you can do it alone, or you're supposed to do it alone, or your job description says you should be able to do it alone, or it will be easier if you do it alone, or it will be a better job if you do it alone. But you can't. We only have so much bandwidth. There's only so much time and energy that we can give to life, to any of the tasks that we are called to do. So Jethro says, listen, I'm going to give you some advice. And here's what he says. He says, first of all, choose some people who are capable. He is able. Choose some able men who fear God, who are reverent, and who are trustworthy. Notice he didn't just say, yeah, just pick anyone, right? There are qualifications, but these qualifications wouldn't always be on a resume. This is not about work experience or accomplishments. This is about their character. Choose people who are capable and who are reverent and who are trustworthy. And then he goes on to say, set them up as officers and also as judges for all the people. So give them authority, give them some, a title, and recognize them among the people so that everyone knows that these are the people who are set apart for this particular task. And that's what we do for elders, right? We bring all our elders up here and we ordain and install them so everyone can see who these people are and what task that they are commissioned and empowered to do. And then finally, it says, let them bring every important case to you, but they can decide the minor cases themselves. So they clearly delineate what role they have, what they are supposed to do, and when it is time to hand it on to someone else. Now, we would call this today delegate. Shared leadership and delegation are absolutely essential for any successful leader or any organization. And honestly, I have a feeling Jethro is Presbyterian. I mean, seriously, because this is how the Presbyterian Church structured. This is how we make decisions as a denomination. Every single body of our denomination, the presbytery, the synod, the General Assembly, is made up 50% of ministers and 50% of elders because we share this leadership together. And we do the same like here in this church, right? We have these ministry teams. And the ministry teams come together as groups of people passionate about a particular area of ministry. And they are empowered and they are given money in order to do the ministry that they are called to do. And very, very seldom do they have to go to session to get approval or authority to do what they want to do. Unless they, want more money than they have originally been given or want to make a drastic permanent change to to our facility or something. And then, of course, session will get involved. But for the most part, our ministry teams are empowered to make the decisions and do the ministry that they've big call to do without, oversight or approval or micromanagement from anyone else. And that doesn't mean that as the staff, we don't support and encourage, and I meet formally twice a year with all the team leaders, and I'm try to always be available, but I don't have to be at every single ministry meeting, nor should I be. It's not healthy for the church or for your staff. And what we find in a church is that there are some churches who believe that you hire people to do the ministry kind of for you. And those churches will never really grow or expand because the people they hire only has so much bandwidth, so much time and energy. But if your staff are the one that recruit people and train people and resource people and empower them, then it's limitless because all of us then are involved in the ministry. All of us can lead particular pieces of the ministry that we do here as a church. So let me ask you, how is your leadership? In your family or in your neighborhood and community or even in this church? Are you feeling like you have the brunt of the responsibility and it's all on your shoulders? And are you feeling stressed out or burned out or overwhelmed? Because if so, then maybe this first leadership lesson is for you. Maybe this is an opportunity to identify a few other people who are capable and faithful and trustworthy, and give them just a piece of the whole puzzle so that together we share in leadership and move forward as a congregation. So that's the first lesson in leadership, is to delegate. Now the second lesson is the realization that leadership is like a lightning rod. Leadership often attracts the grumbling and the discomfort and the complaining that exists as human nature. I'm reminded of in Hamilton, the character King George. For those of you who know Hamilton, after the colonies have freed themselves, he says, okay, what comes next? What comes next? You've been freed. Do you know how hard it is to lead? You're on your own. Awesome. Wow. Do you have a clue what happens now? Oceans rise, empires fall. It's much harder when it's all your call. All alone across the sea, when your people say they hate you, don't come crawling back to me. And is that not what Moses went through? It is hard to lead a group of people, any group of people. And there were many times when the people said they hated Moses. You're steering us wrong. Your leadership, we want a different leader. This isn't right. Criticism is a part of leadership. I mean, after all, you can never make everyone happy all of the time. But when criticism gets to be mean-spirited and undermining and ongoing and prolonged, it starts to wear you down. You get exhausted. And you might even pray the prayer that Moses prayed when he goes to God. And he says, why have you treated me like this? What have I done to deserve this? Right? Haven't I found favor in your sight? You are laying the burden of these people on me. And he says, I can't do it. I can't carry these people alone. It's too much. It's too heavy for me. And if this is the way you're going to treat me, then you might as well put me to death. Okay, it's a little dramatic, right? But can you feel his frustration and exhaustion? He's just like, I can't do it anymore. I'm tired. I don't want to deal with these people. I quit. Just kill me now. And, I wonder, have you ever felt like that before? Have you ever felt like just giving up or walking away? That it's too much? That there's too many accusations or complaining or whatever it is that's negativity that's happening, and you just, like Southwest, you want to get away and just get away from it all. Most pastors I know have experienced that at one time or another, including myself. Probably at every single church I've served, there's been at least one moment where I thought, you know what? I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's hard, and there's so much happening, and I just want to throw in the towel and walk away. And I got some really good advice from my spiritual director and church coach, who said, if you're being called to something else, then by all means follow God's call. But if it's just too hard and you're trying to escape and run away, then maybe go to God and ask for the strength and the wisdom and the perseverance to continue in what God has called you to do. And I think that's true for any of us. When we find ourselves in a situation where we just want to escape and run away and just not deal with whatever the situation might be, maybe the lesson is to go to God and to pray. Is this your will? Is this what you want? I think of teachers who have said, I love teaching and I love the kids, but the parents, the emails, the calls, the criticisms, the accusations and assumptions that are made, I don't even think I want to deal with it anymore. And some people have left teaching because they don't want to deal with the parents or the administration or the people that are, complaining and making these accusations. I am glad that there were two people, Dwayne Robinson and Gutzon Borglum, who did not quit or give up. They had this crazy, out-of-the-box idea to carve some faces on a mountain. And everyone said they were crazy. And they were criticized. What a waste of money. Why would you choose those 4 presidents? Why are you defacing the mountain like that? And over again, the newspapers and politicians and the conservationists and all these people just continued to criticize them of what they were doing. I'm not sure there's as much criticism these days of one of our national monuments that we call Mount Rushmore. I was close. It was one of those. Mount Rushmore could be a national monument. Mount Rushmore. In fact, the $1 million it cost to build or create this brings in $200 million a year in tourism, because let's face it, no offense, but who else is going to South Dakota if there's no Mount Rushmore? Okay. But when there are new, out-of-the-box, crazy ideas, human nature is hesitant. I'm not sure about that. Is it worth it? Is it valuable? Should we do it? Maybe not. It's a terrible idea. And sometimes it's hard for people to see that vision until after it's happened. So, have you ever been criticized or blamed unfairly or grumbled against? I would hazard to guess that probably everybody has. And when we're confident and humble enough, we can learn from that. Constructive criticism is helpful. It helps us see things from another perspective or see ourselves in a different way, and we can learn and grow from that. But when it's too mean, when it becomes vindictive, when it becomes too much and too often, it's exhausting and it's demoralizing. And you want to give up. And our second leadership lesson says, you know what? Take it to God in prayer. Prayer, even if the prayer is, God, just kill me now, right? Take it to God in prayer. Because notice, God didn't kill Moses, and Moses didn't quit. What happened? God said, you know what? We need 70 other people to share the load with you. So 70 other people were brought, and God took the spirit that was on Moses and sprinkled it on these 70 other people. And there were so many more to share the load of leadership. So basically, when in doubt, go back to lesson number 1, get more people and share the leadership and delegate along the way. That's what happened. So pray to God when you feel like giving up. Learn from the criticism and then continue to move forward in the vision that God has given you for that promised land. All right, so finally we come to our third leadership lesson, which is really on the edge of the promised land. So they've made it for 2 arduous years now. They have traveled in the wilderness. They are just miles from the oasis and the beauty of the water and the greenery of the promised land, and they are right there, and they are excited to inherit this promise that they have received from God. So they send out 12 spies, and 12 spies go into the promised land for 40 days. And they check out the land, the people, and the produce. And when they come back, they all agree. It is exactly as God promised. It is flowing with milk and honey. The grapes are huge, the pomegranates, the figs. Everyone agrees it's a beautiful place that has so much to offer. And everyone agrees that there are cities that are fortified and these huge, strong, powerful giants who live in the land. Everyone agrees on the facts. All 12 scouts do. And yet, there is a difference of how they interpret those facts and what the next best step is. You know, it's kind of like 2 opposing fans watching a football game. They have a totally different view on how good the refs are doing. You know, we see things through our own biases, right? We can all look at the same numbers, the same facts. We can look at the same property or the same personnel or the same programs and come to totally different conclusions of what the next best step is. It's part of human nature. So, in the midst of a report that says, you know what, I'm not so sure that, there's these big giants in these cities, Caleb stands up. And Caleb's trying to give them this rally cry. Yes, we can do it. Let's go. Come on, guys, we can overcome. Let's go into the promised land. And he gives them this rallying speech. And then 10 of the 12 spies counter him and say, yeah, we're not going to be able to do this. There is just no way. In the next slide, maybe, we see that the people say, it's too much. They're too big and too strong and too powerful. And if you are one of the Israelites, then who do you believe? Are you going to believe the 2 people that say, yes, we can do it? Or are you going to believe the 10 that say, wow, there is just no way? The cities are too fortified and the people are too strong and powerful. I mean, look at us. We're just like refugees wandering around in the wilderness. We couldn't do it. The Israelites go with the naysayers. And they cry all night long, and they weep, and they complain, and they grumble, and they criticize. And they say, why in the world did you bring us out here? Why? Just so that we could be killed by the sword. We could have died in Egypt, we could have died in the wilderness, but now we're going to die trying to enter into the promised land. And they're like, you know what? I've got an idea. Let's go back to Egypt. And they say, let's go ahead and just fire Moses, choose another leader who will do what we want them to do, turn around, retrace our steps, and go back to Egypt and just voluntarily surrender to Pharaoh and become slaves again. That is their solution. Never mind the fact that God has defeated the strongest army on earth, which was Egypt. Never mind the fact that God provided water and manna and quail for them in the wilderness and guided them along the way. Never mind the fact that God forgave them of that whole golden calf incident thing that happened. And never mind the fact that God went from the top of the mountain down to live with the people in the tabernacle and to dwell among the people. No, instead they said, this is not something that God could ever help us with. There is just no way. that we can do it, we may as well go back. And actually, if you read on a couple more verses in verse 10, we find that they literally are wanting to stone Moses, Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb, because those are the people that believe that they could enter in the promised land. So they are paralyzed by fear just a few miles outside of the promised land. God obviously knows what's going on, hears about it, and God says, okay, you know what, this is 10 times now, 10 times that you have tested me. And God says, here is your punishment then. 40 years in the wilderness. Anyone who is 20 years and over will end up dying in the wilderness except for Joshua and Caleb. And it's because those are the people that remember the signs, that remember Egypt. So anyone who remembers or who participated in these miracles and provisions and faithfulness of God will perish in the wilderness because they had firsthand experience and they chose not to believe that God could do it again. So the future is given to the younger generation because the older one was full of distrust and doubt and fear. So I wonder, we have all been on the edge of the promised land where we have had to make a decision. Do you move forward or not? Do you trust or not? We've all had those questions before where we've experienced this fear and wondering, is it going to paralyze us to keep us from moving forward? The world and common sense says the giants are too big. It'll never happen. There's no way. You can't go back to school at your age or quit that job or change professions or move to a new city or start a new relationship or repair an old one. You can't do anything about injustice or poverty. You may as well just give up and go back where you came from. The giants seem too big, and fear overwhelms us at times. And yet, it's crazy to think that just maybe, with God's help, those giants can be overcome. And there are consequences if we choose not to move forward into that land. It could be a lifetime of regret, wondering what would have happened if I had just tried to enter. It could be a missed opportunity that we'll never get again. It could be pain and heartache that would have been avoided if we chose to trust. But how many times have we experienced being on the edge of the promised land, fearful of moving forward because of the giants that are in our path? You know, there are legitimate things to be afraid of, absolutely. But God says over 100 times in Scripture, do not be afraid. God says, I will be with you. And if God is for us, who can be against us? So when you find yourself in a moment of decision, on the edge of the promised land, filled with fear, looking at the giants, take heart for God's words that says, I am with you. Do not be afraid. I will walk with you into that promised land, and you will be able to take on those giants. So that is our third lesson from the wilderness, that even in the midst of fear, that we will move forward into the promised land because God is with us. Human nature, criticism, fear are all challenges to those who are leaders in our families, in our communities, in our churches. So these are lessons that help each and every one of us. Share your leadership and delegate with others to help carry the load. Pray to God about your frustrations as a leader, and don't give up. Don't run away from the challenges. And finally, even in the midst of fear, move forward, taking one more step into the promised land.